This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted today to be joined by co-founder of S-Jam Boxing, Mr. Adam Morallee. Adam, it's good to see you. Thank you for your time as always. And how is everything?
Yeah, good, Josh. Good, all good. Just back from Canada.
Well, we'll get straight into things talking about Canada. I stayed up Saturday night after Denzel Bentley's emphatic knockout over Derek Chisora to watch Guido Vianello as he took on Arslanbek Makhmudov, and a very big win for himself, an underdog performance. What did you make of his performance in the ring on Saturday night?
Yeah, I think he's improved very rapidly. I mean, we've been with Guido for almost 6 years now. Spotted him in David Hayes' gym, and I think he's got all the attributes needed to be a top heavyweight. He was very good at the start of his career, and then kind of slowed down a bit. COVID hurt him, being away from home, and then I'd say he fought Curtis Harper last October, and then since then his performances have just improved. Beat Moses Johnson in February, then he had the fight with FA, lost on a split decision. We thought he won, and then Makhmudov. He's improving rapidly, so much so that I saw a lot of the online social comments where he's on PEDs, he's on PEDs. He's not on PEDs. He's just rapidly improving, getting bigger, and I think he's a serious top 15 heavyweight now.
And what are the plans for Guido moving forward?
So look, top rank love him. They love him. Incredible. They've shown him incredible support. Let's not forget he was coming off a loss into this fight, and they gave him that fight. So all credit to them. They can't headline him in the States until he's now a headline fighter. They can't headline him for the rest of this year. So we'll be looking to do something probably in Europe um, towards the end of this year. You know, we'd love to. I mean, we'd absolutely love to get a fight, go to Saudi. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? And I think he's starting to put himself into that scene now. I think beating Makhmudov, who's been over there. But absent that, yeah, we'd love to be fighting in Europe.
Would you say that was his almost coming out party, showing everyone what he's really about?
Yeah, I think so. I think we know what Guido's about, but he's now starting to show. I mean, he showed with FA that he's got a good chin, but even by his own admission, he'd never done the 10 rounds before. He got a bit lost in the middle of that fight. He had FA hurt badly after 2 rounds and kind of was a little bit immature in how he dealt with that. But yeah, he's improving rapidly, and I expect to see even bigger improvements. And he's really at that. We're not getting too ahead of ourselves, but he's really in that mix, that top 15 mix now.
And let's say this time next year, or let's say end of 2025, where would you like to see Guido Vianello then?
I mean, look, he's had a great year this year. Hopefully, a fight 4 times. I think he's not going backwards now, right? So if you're fighting Makhmudov and you're not going backwards, who are you going to be fighting in 3, 4 fights time? You've got to really, he'll have a ranking now with the BC and the IBF. You've got to be climbing up there. I think in 4 fights time, I mean, maybe it's something we'll come on to, but I think there is a shift happening in the heavyweight division. There's going to be a number of boxers moving on. The kind of Fury, Joshua Usyk era is coming to an end. And yeah, I think he's part of that new era. I think him v Jared Anderson is a fight that may well happen next year that I think Guido should be very confident in. But I think he's a very, very good up and coming part of the crop. I'd love to see Guido continue at this level, and then if titles become free, maybe 12 to 24 months fighting for titles.
And just moving forward, obviously, we saw Solomon Dakers back in the ring at the end of July on the Magnificent Seven card, a stoppage win over Michael Webster in the rematch. Since then, the board have come out and ordered him versus Moses Itauma. With the rematch between Fabio Wardley and Fraser Clark being made and tying up the British title for the foreseeable future, is the fight with Moses likely to be materialised next?
Yeah, I mean, they ordered that a while ago, actually. They ordered that a while ago and allowed Adelaide to fight Seoul with the winner to fight um, Moses. So it's nothing kind of new. That was always happening. I think Seoul wants to get the British title right. Like all fighters, he wants to look above him in the same way Moses does. No disrespect to Moses, what a phenomenal prospect. Moses wants to fight people above him, and people are saying no. I've actually chatted to Moses about it. People are saying no because he's very dangerous. And what do you get out of it? What's the risk reward? You get beaten by an up and coming prospect. People don't like it. It's very hard. And I appreciate that. I speak to Francis Warren a lot. It's very hard to matchmake Moses. Francis is just always just throwing any name. Moses wants to fight everyone. Fair play to the guy. But for Sol, I think he wants to look above him. He wants to go for that British title next or a bigger fight. And we've got some quite, not the same as, but I'd say top 20 fights set up for Sol. So as a manager, you really want to be looking up.
So what type of fights are you going to be looking for Solomon Dakers next to elevate him to the British title scene?
There's the Adelaide fight, which I think is interesting if Adelaide is going to participate in that fight. You know, he pulled out quite a few times. That's an interesting British fight. Outside of that, I don't see much for Sol at the moment in Britain. Probably an international top 20 opponent for Sol to try and get some kind of ranking, get a minor belt on the line. That's what we're looking at for Sol. But obviously with a view to the British title next. He's been the English champ since March 2023. So for almost 18 months, he's due his shot now. It should be the mandatory. So he wants the winner of Clark Wardley.
Is there still the interest in making the fight with David Adelaide despite the 2 pullouts known to us?
Yes, there is, for sure. I think it's a great fight, but only if he's serious about it. I suggested to David, he didn't like it very much, that there'd be some sort of penalty clause. Or someone else suggested, well, it should happen if he fights and beats Michael Webster, who, by the way, I think is actually a very talented, underrated heavyweight. But yeah, absolutely there is if he's serious about it and wants to fight. I think it's a great fight.
And speaking of obviously Wardley Clark too, it's been made for October 12th in Riyadh. After their fight of the year contender back in March, how do you see the rematch unfolding?
Yeah, look, it's a brilliant bit of matchmaking. It's brilliant chemistry between the two of them. Like many rematches, it will be probably broadly similar to the first one. I think Fraser would have won, wouldn't he? But for the point deduction in the first one. So, look, I like them both terrific guys. I think I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to sit on the fence. But if I have to get off the fence, I'd probably go Fraser.
How big of a toll could that first fight have taken on both of them?
Yeah, I think it was correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but I think it's probably the first time in both their professional careers they've been the 12 rounds.
Yes, yes.
And I think it will do both of them the world of good for future fights. And you talk about taking a toll. Yeah, I think so. I mean, they came out of it battered and bruised, but once you get over that recovery period, I think it makes both of them completely different levels. You saw how good Guido Vianello was after his first 10-rounder.
Yeah.
Because as a boxer, what you then learn is how to pace yourselves over those middle rounds. And that's why the boxers, when you're bringing them up, need to have those 6, 8, 10, 12 for a reason. I think now they've done 12 rounds. I think they'll both be even more dangerous outside of there. I think you see a better fight.
And then just moving forward, looking back a few weeks ago now, we saw Joe Joyce take on Derek Chisora. A very close fight again, another fight that a lot of people were saying could be a fight of the year contender, but not the right end of the result for your man. But what did you make of the fight with Chisora?
Look, I struggle to see. I thought if Joe's to lose that fight, it would be to some kind of overhand right thrown by Derek off the ropes that would knock him out. Now, obviously, he got knocked down in that fight. Quite a lot of people thought Joe lost that fight. If on the cards, had Joe not been knocked down, he would have won the fight. It would have been a split decision win. I think, look, obviously disappointing. That's the first thing. I think Joe got drawn into Derek's fight. I think if he had boxed in maybe a slightly different way, he would have made it easier for himself. I thought from the 4th or 5th round onwards, he won every round easily. But obviously that 9th round, he got knocked down and it turned from 10-9 to him to 10-8. I think the criticism of it, as it always is a bit extreme. I think if you rewatch the performance, Joe's better than he was against Cash Ali. He's not back to his Parker best. I think he did a lot of things very well, but ultimately he lost. That said, it was a good fight, like you said, a fight of the year contender. You know, as a manager, my first job is to Joe's health. And we had serious chats after about him continuing. He definitely wants to continue. I think he's fit as a fiddle. I think he could have done 20 rounds. And I think he's got a future in the heavyweight division.
How big is the desire to try and chase a rematch with Derek Chisora to right that wrong?
I mean, I'd love it. I'd love that fight. I think on Derek's side, he knew how hard it was after 4 or 5 rounds. And I don't think anyone who's faced Joe Joyce ever wants a rematch. Zhang being the exception. But you look at Parker, he doesn't want a rematch. Dubois doesn't want a rematch. It's a very hard night's work against Joe. Yeah, we absolutely love that fight, but I don't think it's. I think we've got to be realistic. Derek's got a couple fights left. I think he's very specific who he wants to fight.
And a lot of people have been calling for Joyce to retire before the Chisora fight, and then obviously you mentioned the extreme criticism even more after the fight with Chisora. Obviously, like you said, Joe said that he still wants to continue and still feels like he's got it in him. What do you think he should do?
Oh, absolutely should continue. You know, if he's fit enough, um, he's fitter than almost all of the other heavyweights out there. He's compos mentis. You know, he should continue. We need to get the right fights for him, but fights between him and when it starts to be that fights between him and top guys are not competitive, Joe should retire. I think Joe isn't the sort of person that should be wheeled out and turned into a gatekeeper or a journeyman. That's not what Joe Joyce should be doing. And the minute he starts to not be able to compete seriously at the top level, I think Joe should retire. But he's not there. I think a fight between him and Daniel Dubois would be very competitive.
Do you have a duty of care to advise your fighters to retire, even if it's not what they want to do?
I think it's the first duty of care for any manager. I think it comes before money, comes before all those things. You owe a duty to save them from themselves if you have to. And that's why I took the decision very seriously, sat with Joe, medicals, scans, all those kind of things. You know, he shouldn't be continuing if he's not fit to do so.
And obviously, alongside Joe's trainer and Joe himself, how much responsibility do you have to take for Joe's health and safety when obviously preparing for fights, during fights, and after fights?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, when they're in there, it's just them in there. So there's only so much you can do, but you can do it through matchmaking properly. And I think the responsibility for a manager arises when you can see a fighter in camp, for example, and you know they're injured and they're on for a big payday, and ensuring that everyone's playing for the long term and people aren't fighting injured or fighting with some sort of potential thing coming down the line. And that's where the manager responsibility really lies.
And then, how heavily has retirement been talked about between yourself and Joe?
I mean, we discussed it in the days after the fight whether he wanted to continue boxing, so it's definitely on the list. But you know, as you could see, if even in the post-fight interviews, when you saw Joe there and Derek there, one looked like he'd been through the mill and one looked like they hadn't. You know, Joe woke up the next day feeling absolutely fine and opened his eyes and thought, Jesus, I've just lost to Derek. So he was absolutely gutted, but you have to have that. It's right and proper to have that conversation, to analyze Joe's body, mind, everything about it, see where he is in his life, what he's going to do to continue. So absolutely, it was the right consideration to have. But it's clear he wants to continue.
And then, what route do you look at taking Joe down now in order to get him back to the level where obviously we can see all the heavyweight fights being made out in Saudi Arabia with the influence of Turkey Al Sheikh? What route do you want to take him down to get him to that level?
Look, I think the world's changed a lot because of Saudi. You know, if we were having this conversation a couple of years ago, you'd be having to get Joe probably 2 or 3 wins, good wins to get him back to Saudi. You look at that Saudi card they announced yesterday. You got 2 people in there coming off losses, straight in there. Joe Cordina lost. He's got a fight with Shakur Stevenson. I think it's different. I think Joe needs to be involved in meaningful fights. I don't think fights against fringe level people is something he should be doing. And we've got to find appropriate opponents for Joe. I think he needs a good couple of wins. And then if he does, there are lots of interesting fights out there for him on the British scene. He's still a massive name. That's the thing. People underestimate what a big name he is. There's very few people with the name recognition that Joe Joyce has. Him and Derek sold out the entire lower bowl of the O2. Wasn't a spare seat in sight. That's because they're both names. So Joe still has a lot of commercial viability.
Moses Talma has openly spoke about a fight with Joe Joyce, saying obviously he'd be up for it. Would you consider that fight for Joe?
Yeah, look, you consider everything, right? You consider everything, but it goes back to the comment I was making before against Seoul, and we had this issue when Joe was on the way up, and you do. You have it with a Johnny Fisher as well. where you're constantly as the junior fighter wanting to go up, but what's in it for the older fighter? And it's a question for Joe. Like right now, I don't see Joe in that phase of his career yet. Is it somewhere he could move to? Yeah. Do I want it really for him? No. Joe doesn't want to be fighting an English prospect, a British prospect. He wants to be fighting world level people in big fights.
And then just moving away from that, just a quick one on Junaid Bostan. We know that a fight between himself and Ishmael Davis has been ordered for the vacant English title. Can you provide an update as to what's going on with that fight?
Yeah, we're discussing the fight, but it's an in-house fight. Both parties signed with Matchroom. We're discussing the fight with Matchroom, making really good progress, and that fight will hopefully, it's not done, but will hopefully be agreed and announced yeah, in the near future.
Do you feel that's a fight that could potentially headline one of Matchroom's next gen cards?
Absolutely, it's an absolute next gen headliner for sure. I think they both sell well in that part of the world. I think it's a terrific fight, and I credit to both fighters wanting to take the fight.
And just looking at obviously some of the big fights coming up, while the boxing schedule is a little bit empty at the moment, like we've been saying, we are now under a month away from Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. How do you see that fight unfolding?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant fight. I think there are a few unknowns in there. Anthony Joshua's comeback from the losses to Usyk started with him fighting Jermaine Franklin, and I think he then fought Helenius, and then he fought out in Saudi, didn't he?
Yes.
Maybe I've missed one, but when you look at those opponents, Ngannou, Helenius, Franklin, I remember actually at the O2 this time last year when he was fighting Helenius before the knockout. I think the crowd were getting restless. So I'm not sure of the level of those opponents and where AJ is as opposed to where he was. That said, I do think he's a clear world level heavyweight, and it's hard to bet against him. I do like what Daniel Dubois has done. I do like how he is under Don Charles. I think he's a terrific coach in his management. I think they've done an incredible job with Daniel. I've watched him spar a lot of my guys. I side towards Daniel in this fight. He's young, and what he's got now that I think he didn't have when he fought Joe, and I think he learned a lot from fighting Joe. I think he's got that stickability in him now that he didn't have before, and I think that might prove decisive.
What do you think Daniel needs to do in order to become victorious?
I think what AJ's got on Daniel is that experience. When you look at the Dubois Ergovic fight, I think Ergovic was pretty dominant early on, and I think the old Dubois may have kind of folded on that, lost confidence, and then as his confidence drained, let Ergovic take over. But I think what you saw in that fight was, as I said before, a different sort of Daniel who has something extra about him that can stick in when it gets hard. And I think that's what he's got to do against Anthony. And in order to win the fight, he's got to be around and alive and strong from round like 9, 10 onwards. And I think his superior youth may play its part at that point.
You mentioned obviously the opponents that AJ has faced on his comeback from the Usyk defeats. One name that sticks out for me as a potential fight for Joe Joyce possibly on the comeback. Someone like Jermaine Franklin, obviously, he gave Dillian White and Anthony Joshua 12 very tough rounds.
Yeah,
Is that a name that could get thrown in the hat for
for
Joe Joyce?
sure, for sure. It's a top 20 opponent, isn't it? Jermaine Franklin, Otto Wallin. I mean, personally, I don't know what Frank and George think. I quite like the idea of a Tony Yoka fight, purely because they were both gold and silver medalists. They were gold and silver medalists, and Joe felt cheated out of that gold medal. I like that fight. I think it's got something extra to it. I think it's a good opponent for Joe. But outside of that, yeah, I think there's some really good top 20 fights for Joe Joyce.
And then back, we're looking towards December, end of the year, we see the rematch for what was meant to be undisputed, but Oleksandr Usyk versus Tyson Fury 2. Fury has come out, and well, Fury's manager Spence Brown has come out recently and confirmed that he'll be sticking with the same team despite all the commotion in the corner last time. What do you think of that?
What, sticking with the same team?
Yes.
Yeah, look, I think oftentimes people are too quick to change things after a loss. Tyson's never lost in his career before. He's an absolute world level legendary heavyweight. The people that got him there include the people who were in that corner. And yeah, after one loss to change it. No, I mean, look, people were saying that Big John Fury shouldn't have been talking too much, whatever. They're very minor things. I think it's clearly a winning team, generally. It's clearly a team that has known nothing but success apart from the last fight. So I wouldn't see a reason to change it. I think it'd be a bit knee jerk to change it. I think, like, after any defeat, you need to do a proper analysis of what went wrong. And I don't think he lost that fight because of what was said in the corner.
What do you feel Tyson Fury needs to change heading into a rematch with Usyk?
I don't know. It's a very close fight between two absolutely world class operators, decided generally on the thinnest of margins. I mean, everyone, I'm sure you watched that fight as well. It looked like Tyson, I think, from round 6, 7 onwards, was coming on strong, and I think most people thought he was going to steamroller Usyk. And what won the fight for Usyk was his incredible technical skill, I think, and his ability, going back to what we are saying with Dubois, to find another gear late on. I think, what would I say? I mean, probably conditioning, maybe. Maybe
And
that's the one thing.
and if Fury is to lose, do you feel retirement could be a big potential for him?
I mean, look, the guy's made so much money and he's been so successful. The only thing he's not had is undisputed. I saw him give an interview earlier this week where he said boxing was like the greatest thing and the worst thing. He's got to have a why to continue, hasn't he? Like it's he's got so much money, he's not continuing to make money, but he's not doing it. He's got enough hundreds of millions. There's got to be a why. And maybe the why is that he just loves boxing and he wants to continue. So that retirement question is very difficult, very different than it is for someone like Joe Joyce. It's just about what you want to do with the rest of your life. I mean, I'd love to see him carry on and fight everybody. He's a brilliant showman. He's very well known. He's known by the public, brings tons of fights. I'd love to see him fight Johnny Fisher, Guido Vianello, Sol Dakers, and Joe Joyce. So long may he continue.
Could that Y factor also possibly be a fight with Anthony Joshua? We've seen Spencer Brown and Eddie Hearn both come out and say, regardless of results on September 21st and December 21st, Joshua versus Fury is going to be next. Do you reckon that could be the big Y factor as to why Tyson can stick around?
Yeah, for sure. I think, as we said, what you've seen in Saudi is now, I think, keeping your O matters less. Having a world title on the line matters less. You look at some of the biggest fights in the UFC that involve Conor McGregor, who lost 3 or 4 times in a row. It's about personalities. They're the two biggest personalities in British boxing. They're two of the biggest personalities in world boxing. Everyone will watch that fight.
Do you feel that's something that is a bit of a annoying part of boxing? Obviously, like you mentioned, when you look at MMA, you can see fighters like, for example, someone like Charles Oliveira. He's a massive fan favorite in the UFC, but he's got over 10 defeats in his career, but still considered a world title contender. But then if you looked at someone in boxing with 10 defeats, it's a bit of a different story, isn't it?
It is. And I think that the more accepting people are of defeats, the better. Because what protecting the O leads to is uncompetitive fights. At least the defensive managers and defensive trainers saying, don't take that. If he loses, he's finished. And so I think it slows the growth of boxers, number one. And number two, gives a worse product. You get a better product for the fans and people are less concerned about a loss. I mean, look, Fury's lost. Joshua's lost. Well, the only person who hasn't lost at the top level is Usyk, I think, in the heavyweight division. Everyone else has lost.
Fair enough. Well, Adam, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Always a pleasure to catch up with you.
Pleasure,
And
Josh.
hopefully we can chat again soon. Cheers. Thank you.
Speak soon, mate.